We are looking at the possibility that we are prisoners living on a prison planet, forced into reincarnating here on Earth time and again. We are also looking at the different theories which posit basically the same thing. And what I'm trying to do is wade through the information in order to come up with a unified theory, assuming all this is correct, of course. But I have to tell you though, the more I look into the subject, the more I'm leaning towards the idea that this could be real, though my mind is still open. In the last video, I alluded to the fact that this world is messed up, to put it politely. And I call it a fact because I don't think many people can argue with this assessment. It's just self-evident. And it seems to be getting worse with the passage of time. Today, there is no such thing as compromise, cooperation, or toleration, and our perceptions are being severely manipulated to perpetuate this antagonism. Because the system operates at peak performance when we all see things differently and are willing to push that vision, come what may, without considering the other's point of view. I believe most of this stirred up antagonism is because of the media, both corporate and social. The Matrix has set this informational system up as a propaganda machine, a control mechanism to hypnotize the moo cows in order to sustain the hatred and suffering in the world today. There's a great quote by human rights activist Malcolm X, and he says, "The media is the most powerful entity on earth. They have the power to make the innocent guilty and the guilty innocent. And that's power because they control the minds of the masses." End quote. He nailed it. There is so much emerging information out there which proves this is absolutely true. So much corruption is being uncovered today, breathtaking in scope. But where is the outrage? There are a lot of blank stares, puzzled looks, a lot of mooing and indifference in many parts of society, which leaves me shaking my head in bewilderment, if I'm honest. And what is the reason for this disinterest? Naivete, maybe? Lack of information? Bias? Mainstream media cover-ups? This last possibility is becoming quite evident. The covering up of these crimes and the decision not to cover the stories, just as nefarious as the cover-up solution, is what the media is all about. They are professional liars. But whatever it is, the result is a perception problem. We should all be questioning our perceptions, how we are seeing things. Now, psychosis is a very real phenomenon. It's a set of symptoms that affect a person's thoughts, perceptions, emotions, and behavior, and which can make it difficult for us to distinguish between what is real and what is not. Again, define real in terms of a matrix. Can we even know what is real? This is part of the problem. People who experience psychosis may have delusions, which are false beliefs that are not based on reality. Again, think in terms of the simulation. What is reality? Can you see how this can become extremely complex? Throw hallucinations into the mix, and you have perceptions that are not based on external stimuli. That is, you are seeing, hearing, feeling, or smelling things that are not really there. Or are they? A definite conundrum. A psychologist by the name of Charles T. Tart, looking at the out-of-body experiences of Robert Monroe, and we mentioned him in the last video, made the observation that if OOBEs, out-of-body experiences, are real, and if the things Monroe describes can't be dismissed as an interesting kind of fantasy or dream, then our worldview is going to change radically, and for some, uncomfortably so. We'll be looking at this in a later video. Tart goes on to explain that human nature resists change and that we like the world to be the way we think it is. That way we can at least anticipate what might happen. Change and uncertainty have the nasty habit of unsettling things, especially when that change takes no account of our desires, will, or egos, making reality less predictable. Therefore, people will not want to see things the way they really are. They become self-deluded in a way. As you can see, this is a very multi-layered situation and difficult to wade through, knowing what is real or not, perceiving the difference between reality, psychosis, and hallucination. How can we really know what is reality? How are we to assemble this puzzle so as to see what is what? Well, stick around and we'll take a deep dive together. I'm the Grumpy Grandpa. Welcome again, fellow Grumpies, to the Grumpy Grandpa channel, where we place a magnifying glass over supposed reality in order to see it for what it is, where we ask unthinkable and uncomfortable questions to get at the truth of the matrix and our possible imprisonment. Things are getting really crazy out there, with the confusion over gender, pronouns, bank collapses, and the like, with people on every side taking up arms and readying themselves for the war on everything. The corporate media, in line with the will of their corporate masters, who are also in accord with the will of their masters, the global cult, the deep state, the hidden hand, our owners, the elites, call them what you will, they have gone all out in provoking the situation with their disinformation and lies. And right now, much of it is surfacing and is in plain sight for all to see. Though not everyone is seeing through the fog of deception, or so it seems. There are those out there who are beginning to see through the BS though, and they are growing in number. Maybe it will be a case of give them enough rope and they'll hang themselves. I'm talking about the media, of course. Their viewer ratings are imploding. But is it going to be enough to be rid of the propaganda machine? All sides are involved in the misinformation, and they are all pointing the finger at the other side, shouting, propaganda, when they are all propagandists. It's all part of the game. Don't forget, the system is rigged. But what happens if enough people wake up? What is the matrix programmed to do in that scenario? Will it be the end of the simulation? Or are we headed towards another system reset because too many people are becoming conscious? Much is being said about the great reset that's coming out of the World Economic Forum right now. The crazy radical proposals and the breathtaking hypocrisy of the elites attending the WEF's annual meetings at Davos, all arriving in their expensive jets while they want to limit the rest of us to 15-minute cities. Of course, the reset I'm talking about is more of a system reset, a reboot of the simulation in whatever form that might take. Meteor impacts, nuclear World War III and Armageddon, the global warming meltdown, God forbid. Come and live in Minnesota for that one. This leads to the question, have there been resets in the past? And is there a record of them? Now, I suspect there have been, though I can't prove they are simulation reboots. It's something I'm going to look into for a future video. So what has all this to do with the soul trap that we are caught in? Well, this is an effort to get people to see that this theory isn't as crazy as it might sound. There is a logic behind it with scientific data to back it up. And this is what I'm hoping to present in the coming videos. In the last video, we looked at the Gnostic view of creation and the present reality. I tried the best I could to explain the mechanisms and come to some sort of an understanding. But I'm not the only one considering this theory. There are a lot of people better qualified than me to get this information out there. And one of them is renowned writer and conspiracy theorist, and I use that term with tongue-in-cheek, David Icke. The following clip of him speaking with London Real presenter Brian Rose outlines what I'm hoping will shed further light on the situation. Here he is talking about his book, The Trap, and his take on the simulation and those behind it.
This simulation is not confined to this level that we call the human world. But there are other levels of it, which we call the spirit world. And what if, when people leave the body, if they are not at a state of awareness, what the Eastern religions would call enlightenment, to be vibrating to a frequency which comes from your perceptual state, to get out of the frequency bubble that this simulation is on all its different levels. Well, how about you just go back into the cycle and you keep recycling, not actually onto a billionth of a pinhead, but from one, although it just appears like that, but you're actually reincarnating from other levels of the simulation into this level of the simulation, and it just goes on and on and on. And what if, just as people are bewildered by what the hell this world is and what's happening, that when you leave the body, if you've not reached a certain level of awareness of what the hell's going on, which is what the book's all about, then you're bewildered in another way, and you believe, just as you believe you're here for this reason, that reason, or you're here to learn lessons or whatever you believe, outside of this, still in the simulation, you believe that you have to keep coming back here to learn lessons to get out of the cycle. And it was interesting to me that when you look at ancient cultures and cultural beliefs, they do believe in this cycler movement in and out of this reality. And there's a very old esoteric concept of what they call the ring pass not. The ring pass not is perceived to be a limit, you could symbolize it as the outer rim of a bubble, that if you're not in a certain vibrational state, i.e. state of awareness, which is why they relate enlightenment to getting out of here, then you can't get through the ring pass not. Other beliefs and religious beliefs talk about the Ouroboros, which is the snake eating its own tail, which is symbolic of this limit, this ring pass not. And so it becomes clear to me that the trap is much bigger than just the manipulation of this reality that we call the human world. It goes beyond that, well beyond that. So you come into this world to learn lessons, but what happens? You suffer from emotional and mental traumas and challenges. It pulls you into depression, into anxiety, into fear, the four-letter word that controls the world and if actually controls the simulation in all its forms. And you leave the body overwhelmingly in a low vibrational state, so you don't get out of here. The idea is that you keep control of perception, i.e. frequency, to the point where no one gets out of here. And you know, there are traps everywhere. Like there's the trap of, yeah, it's about reincarnation and learning lessons. It's a freaking trap. It's not about learning lessons. We don't have to learn lessons. We are all that is, has been, and ever can be. We don't have to learn lessons to stop incarnating on a billionth of a pinhead or into this level of the simulation, whichever you choose to symbolize it as. We can reach our own state of enlightenment just by the realization of who we are. And if you look at when you come into this reality, the human world, what are they telling you from cradle to grave to self-identify yourself with? The body and the labels of a human life. They're saying you are a man, you are a woman, you are something in between. You are this sexuality, you are that race, you are this religion, you are that income bracket. All these labels, that's who you are. And if you perceive yourself in those incredibly limited terms, because they're not who we are, they are experiences that who we are, consciousness is briefly having in a human life. But if you self-identify with those labels, you're self-identifying with limitation. When you self-identify with limitation, your sense of limitation becomes expressed vibrationally in a low vibrational state, which means when you leave this reality, this human reality, you're in a vibrational state that stays in the cycle, round and round and round it goes. And, you know, the other part of the trap is, where did the simulation come from? And I've been writing about this for quite a while. As Rich Terrell at NASA said, if this is a simulation, which he believes it is, who the hell created it? And this brings us to that question I posed earlier. Why can't we see that which is manipulating us in a non-human form, as I say it is? Well, because we can only see this tiny narrow band of frequency called visible light, and the force that is manipulating human society, controlling the simulation, actually created the simulation to enslave us by enslaving our perception. It's what the simulation is, enslavement of perception, is operating outside the band of frequency that we can see. And if we call this reality the third dimension, keep it simple, and a higher or another level of frequency high enough for us not to be able to see it, the fourth dimension is what spiritual people call the astral dimension or the astral plane. When people talk about astral traveling, it's actually traveling with the mind, because the fourth dimension, the astral dimension, is the dimension of mind. And it's from there that this reality is manipulated, controlled, and orchestrated from. And if you look at, you talk to people about other dimensions, even if they accept that that's real, they perceive other dimensions to be way out there. Oh my God, they're way out there, these other dimensions. Well, some of them are. Some of them in frequency terms are so far from the frequency band that we're operating in, it's just ridiculous how far away they are. But other dimensions, like this astral dimension, the lower level of it, the lower frequency level of it, actually is fusing into this. It bleeds into this reality. And if you look at how they describe the lower levels of the astral plane, the fourth dimension, what they call the lower astral, and you talk to people in different ancient cultures, you talk to people in the spiritual movements of today, they'll say that's the place where the demons are. That's the place where the demonic consciousness is. That's where the darkness is, as they would call it.
One of the surprising things I've come to realize since my studying this phenomenon is that it's been around for some time. Forgetting the Gnostics for a moment, my first realization that something might be amiss was the Death Traps project conducted by the Farsight Institute. I mentioned this in the first video. It took a while for the implications to sink in. At the time, I was seriously looking at the Buddhists and their beliefs, along with the Hindus and their understanding of reincarnation. Reincarnation itself appeared on my radar, because of all the tantalizing stories of children remembering their past lives. A very real phenomenon, by the way. I understood then that there had to be something to this. And of course, when a probability like this invades your understanding, well, your perceptions of reality changes. And it takes time for this perception change to, what's the word I'm looking for? Solidify maybe within your consciousness, if I can call it that. It's a waking up, that's for sure. An important side effect to this awakening is that you now see or witness how you perceive the world and the constant need for questioning those perceptions. You now understand that you don't always see things the way they really are. You're more likely to consider another's point of view also. And it will certainly be easier to see the propaganda merchants of the mainstream media at work.
Do not arouse the wrath of the great and powerful Oz. I said come back tomorrow.
If you are really great and powerful, you'll keep your promises.
Do you presume to criticize the great Oz? You ungrateful creatures think yourselves lucky that I'm giving you audience tomorrow instead of 20 years from now. Oh. The great Oz has spoken. Oh. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. The great Oz has spoken.
Who are you?
Oh, I am the great and powerful Wizard of Oz.
Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. That's exactly how it is. Are you seeing it? The hell? Yeah, that's Grandma. She's into that kind of thing. Where was I? Oh yeah. Is this revelation entering your consciousness? I hope this is bringing some clarity to your idea of what reality is. For me, the fog is beginning to lift, and I'm having my mind cleared of all the accumulated and unwanted debris of the past programming. What about you? Until the next time.